There we go. Hello, Facebook. Welcome to another Saturday in what is fast becoming a tradition. Hot coffee and another story hot off the press. Not true exactly. This was hot off the press 2 months ago when I originally recorded it for The Way I Heard It, which you can subscribe to over at mikerowe.com/podcast. Here on Saturday mornings, however, when I have the good fortune to be home, I set a few minutes aside to tell you the story face to face, as it were. And why would I stop? The feedback has been very positive. So, before we get to it, the original sponsor was 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. Again, please don't fast forward through this. It is kind of important. I've partnered with 1 Hour, not only because I like it warm in the winter and cool in the summer, like most of the rest of the species, but they have many, many jobs available. And we have this thing going on over at findskilledjobs.com. That's 1 Hour down there. Also, Mr. Sparky and Benjamin Franklin. They all came together to do this campaign with me called Hot Under the Blue Collar. And here's a video you can watch which explains how you can get your hands on some of the $400,000 in free scholarship money that we currently have available right now. Long story short, we're training people for jobs that actually exist. The guys in these industries are desperate to hire in every single state right now. So it's a thing we're doing with Mike Rowe. Speaking of which, sorry, I'm totally turning my my kitchen into QVC, but whatever. Selling this shirt. It's the Freddy and the Biped #2 in a series. This is a fundraiser we do for Microworks right now. The dog is dressed like Teddy Roosevelt. He's saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." He's got a stick in his mouth, and so do I, because I'm terribly clever. We sell them for like $24, $25 over at represent.com/Mike Rowe. It's a nice way to raise the money for the scholarship fund. Previously mentioned vis-a-vis our sponsorship with 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. This is why I drink the coffee early in the morning. Helps me talk faster and wake up. Perhaps this story will do the same for you. I first stumbled across this a couple of years ago, and I've been looking for an excuse, some kind of format to share it with, and that, of course, is why I do The Way I Heard It. This is a true story. They're all true stories. They're just sort of rewritten and retold by me. If you're hearing this for the first time, settle in. It's only 5 minutes. If you're listening to it again, well, God bless you and the power of the rerun. It doesn't have a title. If it did, I'd call it Clean Up in Aisle 4. Here it is. September 16th started off like any other day for the employees at Randall's grocery store. They arrived at 5 a.m. and began prepping the produce and wiping down the cash registers. The smell of baked goods filled the aisles as the employees began the endless process of stocking and rotating thousands of products on hundreds of shelves. It was really just an average day in an average grocery store. Until it wasn't. The boss showed up, anxious and frazzled. Apparently some bigwig was in town visiting the nearby Space Center, and they had just received word that he was about to drop by the grocery store for an unscheduled tour. Who could it be? Some muckety-muck from the home office? A shareholder? Maybe Mr. Randall himself, coming by for a surprise inspection. The boss barked orders to make sure the place was tip-top, and the employees took things up a notch. A few hours later, the store was sparkling, and the mystery guest arrived. Whoever he was, he did not work for Randall's. Looking outside through the glass, the employees could see that this was clearly a very powerful, very important man. He had an entourage with security, and the media followed close behind. He was smiling for the cameras, confident and sure. But then he walked through those automatic sliding doors, and everything changed. The man looked as if he'd seen a ghost. He wandered up and down the aisles, slowly at first, and then with increased agitation. His expression seemed to switch back and forth between fascinated and demoralized. He paused to stare in wonderment at the fresh fish, the meat selections, and the produce department. He was enraptured, peppering the customers with questions. At one point, the man asked the store manager what type of advanced education was required to run a store as magnificent as this. The manager blushed. The employees had never seen anything like it. By all accounts, though, it was the sight of the frozen pudding pops that left the visitor in utter disbelief. Like an indigenous member of some forgotten tribe deep in the Amazon who glanced up one day and saw a 747 flying overhead, this well-dressed visitor, this highly educated, undeniably successful, and clearly important individual was left slack-jawed by pudding pops. There were just so many, and in such a rich variety of colors. By the time he boarded his private plane, the visitor was unable to speak to his staff members. His world had been turned upside down in an instant. You see, the man who visited the grocery store that fateful day in 1989 had just been elected to the new Soviet parliament. And in all his years, he had never seen so much food in just one place. He later said, quote, "When I saw those shelves crammed with hundreds, thousands of cans, cartons, and goods of every possible sort for the first time, I felt quite frankly sick with despair for the Soviet people that such a potentially super-rich country as ours has been brought to a state of such poverty. It is terrible to think of it." Just like that, one man's loyalty to communism completely destroyed. He returned home and promptly left the party and started making reforms. And then, just 2 years later, under his presidency, the Soviet Union would dissolve. That's true, Ronald Reagan told Gorbachev to tear down this wall. But back in 1989, that wall was still standing. And who knows, it might still be there today, if not for the hardworking employees at a Randall's grocery store in Clear Lake, Texas, who kept the shelves fully stocked so another Soviet, a Soviet named Boris Yeltsin, could come face to face with a freezer full of pudding pops and change the history of the world. Anyway, that's the way I heard it. Did you know it? Did you think it was going to be Gorbachev, but then it was Yeltsin? They're never who you think they're going to be. Unless, of course, they are, in which case, you listened anyway, so thanks. 1.5 million downloads so far for the way I heard it. I don't know if that's good, honestly, but when the people call and tell me, there's excitement in their voice. So thank you if you've already subscribed over at mikerowe.com/podcast. If you haven't, do me a favor and do it. It'll take a second. Whether you listen to it or not, it doesn't matter. You can listen to them here, but the podcast and the subscription thing helps me. So does going to represent.com. Again, you know what? Maybe I'll just turn this into Home Shopping Saturdays. The worst things you could buy and the worst shirts you could wear. I slept in this one last night. It was amazingly comfortable for a pair of pajamas. It also has a nice sentiment on it. Obviously, it was Teddy Roosevelt who originally said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." But I think it still translates today, and I think as a fundraiser goes, it's a great way to throw some more money into the Mike Rowe Works Work Ethic Scholarship Program. And this one is a large, so it's a little snug on me. But they come in all the normal sizes. And would you like to have one? Anyway, represent.com/Mike Rowe. In fact, here, look, I'll show it to you. What with the miracle of technology. There it is. Represent.com/Mike Rowe. You order one of those, it's $24.99. Great way to raise money for Mike Rowe Works. Having said all that, it's a Saturday, for crying out loud. Get out there and enjoy it.